Emily sat quietly at the back of the classroom, her cane resting on the side of her chair. She had only been at this new school for a week, and already she felt like an outsider. People didn't talk to her much. They looked at her, yes, but mostly with curiosity or sometimes pity. She was blind, and that seemed to be all anyone noticed. She missed her old school, where at least a few kids knew her, and the music room was like a second home. The piano there had old keys and creaked when the bench moved, but she loved it. She could sit for hours and lose herself in music. Here at this new school, everything felt cold. The hallways were loud, but not with laughter, more like competition. Gossip and clicks of phones taking pictures. One afternoon, as the last bell rang and students rushed out, Emily stayed behind. She had overheard a girl in the cafeteria say that the choir room had a grand piano that made her heart skip. She asked a teacher how to find it, and with her cane tapping softly on the tile floor, she made her way slowly, counting steps, turning. When needed, finally, she reached a heavy wooden door. She pushed it open, and the smell of polished wood and sheet music greeted her. It was quiet inside. The room felt large, and her ears picked up the soft echo of her footsteps as she moved forward. Then her hands found at the piano. Just touching it sent a wave of joy through her chest. She smiled, sat down gently on the bench, and placed her fingers on the keys. At first she played softly, almost whispering to the keys. Her fingers moved slowly, feeling out a melody that lived in her mind. It was a piece she had composed herself, something she never wrote down because she couldn't see sheet music. Her memory was her paper, and her soul was the ink as she played. Her body swayed slightly. She forgot she was new. She forgot people stared. She forgot the cruel laughter she heard in the hallway earlier. In that moment, she was free. Her hands danced across the piano, weaving emotion into sound, but she didn't know that someone had entered the room. Mr. Dalton, the choir director, had returned to pick up his forgotten clipboard. He paused at the doorway, his brow furrowing. As he listened, at first he thought a student had sneaked in for fun. But when he saw Emily, blind, unfamiliar, sitting at his piano, his face tightened. He walked in, his shoes clicking loudly on the floor. But Emily didn't stop playing. She was too lost in the music. Stood behind her, arms crossed, lips pressed in a tight line. Finally, he cleared his throat sharply. Emily froze. Her fingers hovered over the keys, suddenly cold. "Oh," she said softly, turning her head slightly. "I'm sorry, I didn't know anyone was here." Mr. Dalton's voice was sharp and dismissive. "You shouldn't be." Emily swallowed hard. I wanted to play for a little while. I didn't think anyone would mind." "This isn't a toy," he said, walking toward the piano. "This room is reserved for choir practice and trained performers, not for casual playing." "I'm sorry," she whispered, fingers sliding off the keys. She felt small, invisible. He scoffed, shaking his head. "Right. Blind or not, if you want. To be part of this program, you need formal training. Ear playing isn't enough. We have standards here." Emily's face turned red. The words hit her like stones. She had faced ignorance before, but something about this moment cut deeper. She wasn't just being dismissed. She was being mocked. Made to feel like her passion meant nothing because she didn't fit into his perfect system. He turned and walked away, mumbling, "This room isn't for experiments." The door shut behind him with a final thud. Emily sat frozen for a while. She wanted to cry, but she didn't. She had learned not to. Tears gave people more reasons to call her weak. Instead, she sat quietly, her hands resting in her lap. Kane stood upright beside her like a silent friend. She wanted to leave, but her legs felt heavy. So, she reached for the keys again, just lightly, and played a few soft notes, barely audible. Just enough to remind herself that the music was still inside her, that no one could take it away. Outside the room, a student named Jake had been passing by. He was heading to pick up his trumpet, which he had forgotten in his locker. He stopped. When he heard the music, then paused again when he heard the teacher's harsh words. He peeked in and saw the blind girl sitting at the piano, alone and embarrassed. Jake didn't know her name, but something about the way she played had stuck. With him, he waited a few minutes, then walked away quietly, making sure his footsteps didn't echo. But in his mind, the notes she had played echoed clearly. And so did the teacher's cruel words. The next day, Emily returned to class like normal. No one mentioned the piano. No one talked to her about it. The music room door remained closed. Mr. Dalton didn't even look her way when she passed him in the hallway. She felt like her chance had come and gone. One brief moment of joy, crushed under the weight of someone else's judgment. But she didn't stop playing. At home, she still practiced on her small keyboard. She still composed new melodies in her mind. She still dreamed, and she didn't know it yet. But someone else had started watching. Jake began asking around about the blind girl. He learned her name, Emily. He found out she had transferred from another district and that she had been playing piano since she was 6. He also learned she had never had formal lessons. Everything she knew was from listening, practicing, in pure heart. Jake told his father, who was the school janitor, about what he'd seen and heard. His dad nodded slowly and said, "Sometimes the best music comes from those who've had to listen more than speak." One afternoon, while Emily was again sitting alone at lunch, Jake approached her. "Hi," he said, nervous but smiling. She turned her head toward the voice. "Hello. I saw you in the choir room. You played the piano. You're amazing." She hesitated, unsure how to respond. Most people said nothing or worse. "Thank you," she said softly. "I'm Jake. I play trumpet," he added. "I think what Mr. Dalton said was really unfair." She gave a small smile. "It's okay. I'm used to it." "But you shouldn't have to be," Jake replied quickly. "Hey, ... Would you mind if I recorded you playing sometime?" She tilted her head. "Why?" "Because people need to hear what you can do." Emily didn't know what to say. No one had ever asked her that before. After a long pause, she nodded. "Okay." Jake grinned. "Tomorrow after school? Same place?" she said. He nodded, even though she couldn't see it. "Yeah, same place." And just like that, a spark began to glow, small but real. Emily didn't know that her quiet song was about to change everything. The world that had ignored her would soon stop and listen. That night, for the first time since arriving at her new school, Emily slept with a quiet sense of hope in her chest, because maybe, just maybe, someone believed in her. And that was enough to begin. The next morning, Emily walked into school with her cane tapping gently against the floor, just like every day. But something felt different. It wasn't something she could touch or hear, just a small feeling in her heart, like a quiet breeze before a storm. She remembered Jake's voice from the day before, his kindness, and his request to record her piano playing. She had said yes. And although part of her was nervous, another part, deeper and braver, was excited. The school day moved slowly. Students rushed between classes, laughing with their friends, throwing jokes, sharing videos. But Emily moved quietly and alone. She didn't have a group to sit with or friends to whisper secrets to. She had her thoughts, her memories, and the music in her mind. In the cafeteria, she sat at her usual table in the corner, eating in silence. But today, something strange happened. She felt someone sit across from her. "Hey," said Jake's voice. Emily paused, surprised. "Hi, I was thinking," he said, with a bit of hesitation. "Maybe after school today, ... You could play that same piece you played the first time I heard you, the one that started soft but got really powerful at the end." She smiled slightly. "You remember that?" "Yeah," he said. "I couldn't forget it. I showed my dad the video I took of you. He said it gave him goosebumps." Emily's eyebrows lifted. "You recorded me already?" Cleared his throat. "I didn't mean to do it secretly. I wanted to show someone how good you are. I thought maybe people would finally listen if they saw it." Emily was quiet for a moment, unsure how to feel. "You didn't ask," she said softly, but not angrily. "I know," he said quickly. "I'm sorry. I should have. But I didn't." "Share it with anyone else?" "Not yet." There was a pause. Then she nodded. "Okay, but ask me next time." "Of course," Jake said, relieved. "So, ... after school." Emily smiled. After school. When the final bell rang, Emily found her way to the choir room again. Jake was already there, setting up his phone on a small tripod. The piano waited, silently in the corner, like an old friend. She sat down, adjusted the bench with both hands, and gently placed her fingers on the keys. "You ready?" Jake asked. She nodded. "Yes." He hit record. The room went still. Then Emily began to play. At first her notes were soft, almost like a whisper. But soon they grew louder, fuller, deeper, like they were speaking for her. She closed her eyes, even though she couldn't see, and her body moved with the music. Her fingers flew across the keys, hitting every note with emotion and grace. It wasn't perfect in the traditional way, but it was real, raw, and beautiful. Jake stood quietly in the corner, watching with wide eyes. He had never seen anyone play like that. It wasn't just talented. It was something else. It's like her soul was pouring out through the piano when she finished. The last note hung in the air like a soft goodbye. Jake stopped recording, but he didn't speak right away. He just clapped. Not loudly, just enough to let her know he was amazed. "That was unbelievable," he said. Emily smiled, her cheeks a little red. "Thank you." That night, Jake uploaded the video to his YouTube channel. He titled it "Blind." Girl stuns with original piano performance? He didn't expect much. Maybe a few classmates would see it. Maybe it would get a few hundred views. But by the next morning, everything had changed. At first, it was just one comment. "She's incredible. How has no one noticed her before?" Then came more crying. "This is real talent. Someone. Give her a scholarship already. Her music feels like it's telling a story." Within hours, the views jumped from hundreds to thousands, then to tens of thousands. By lunch, the video had hit 50,000 views. Jake ran up to Emily in the hallway. "Emily," he said breathlessly, "the video, it's going viral. People love it. They're sharing it like crazy." She tilted her head, confused. "What do you mean?" "It has over 50,000 views, and I've gotten messages from people asking who you are, some musicians, some news people. It's crazy." Emily's heart beat faster. She didn't know what to say. Part of her was happy, but part of her was scared. What if it was too much? What if people thought she didn't deserve it? Later that day, she passed a group of students in the hallway whispering. "That's her," one girl said. "The blind girl from the piano video. I saw it last night." "I cried," said another. "She's better than half the people in the music department." For the first time since she had arrived at the school, people noticed her, not for her cane or her silence, but for her talent. But not everyone was happy. Mr. Dalton, the choir director, saw the video too. His face turned red with frustration. He recognized the room, the piano, and the girl. He also noticed the comments, people praising her, calling her a genius, wondering why she wasn't in the choir. He called Jake into his office. "Who gave you permission to record in my room?" Mr. Dalton snapped. Jake stood tall. "Not against the rules." The room was empty after school. And her. "She's not a part of this program." Jake looked at him, confused and a little angry. "Why not? She's amazing." I'm at self to mom. I'm some we are we saw we She plays by ear. That's not how we do things here. Jake took a deep breath. Maybe that's the problem. Mr. Dalton stood up, his voice cold. "Watch your tone, Mr. Parker. You may think you're doing something good, but you're making things difficult. This program follows structure, discipline, not emotional internet noise." Jake left the office fuming. He told Emily everything. She wasn't surprised. "It's okay," she said. "He never wanted me there anyway, but he should want talent," Jake replied. "And you have more of it than anyone else in that room." Still, Emily tried to stay calm. She knew fame came and went. She wasn't playing to be famous. She played because music was her voice. But the video kept spreading. A local news channel picked it up. Then a popular music blog shared it. One night, her mother came into her room, tears in her eyes. "There's someone from the State Music Academy who saw your video," she said. "They want to come see you play." Emily's breath caught. "Really? Think you're special? They said you're playing?" Move them. The next week, the academy representative arrived during school hours. She was a woman named Ms. Claire, tall, kind-eyed, and dressed in a deep blue coat. She asked to hear Emily play in person. Jake arranged everything. They met in the choir room again. This time, the lights were dim, the room quiet. Even Mr. Dalton was forced to attend. Emily sat at the piano again, just like she had done on that first lonely afternoon. Only now her heart beat with purpose. She played a new piece, one she had written just the night before. It was soft, then strong, sad, then joyful. It told the story of a girl who had been silent too long and finally found her voice. When she finished, the room was silent. Claire stood up, eyes glassy. "You don't just play music," she said. "You are music." She turned to Mr. Dalton. "This girl belongs in the spotlight." Mr. Dalton said nothing. His lips were tight, and he looked away. Emily didn't smile to be cruel. She smiled because, for once, her music had been heard the way it was meant to be. The next day, posters were put up around the school for the spring recital. One name was at the top of the list: Emily Lane, featured pianist. People clapped when they saw her in the halls. Students who had never talked to her before now waved or said hello. Even some teachers congratulated her. It was overwhelming, but in a good way. One afternoon, Jake asked her, "How does it feel?" She thought for a moment. "It feels like I finally walked out of the shadows. Like people see me now, not just the blindness, but me." He smiled. "They're going to remember your name, Emily. Just wait." She didn't know what the recital would bring, but for the first time, she wasn't afraid. She wasn't hiding. She was ready, because her music had finally opened a door no one could shut. The days leading up to the spring recital were filled with excitement, energy, and a little bit of nervous tension for everyone, especially for Emily. She could feel the change in the air every time she walked through the school hallways. Students who once ignored her now greeted her. Teachers smiled warmly. Some even stopped to say how much they loved her piano video. It was strange, but also beautiful. But behind the smiles and attention, Emily knew one person who wasn't happy: Mr. Dalton, the choir director. Even though he didn't say much anymore, Emily could sense his discomfort. He never congratulated her, never smiled when people talked about her. Worst of all, he'd never said a single kind word about her music, and it didn't matter how. Many people praised her. Mr. Dalton's cold silence still echoed in the back of her mind. She tried not to let it bother her. Instead, she focused on what she loved most: playing the piano. Every evening, she sat by her keyboard at home, creating new melodies, working on her performance piece for the recital. She wanted to make it unforgettable. Not just for herself, but for everyone who had ever felt ignored, misunderstood, or different. Jake visited her almost every day now. He brought her hot chocolate, funny stories from school, and sometimes just quiet company. He wasn't just a friend anymore. He had become her biggest supporter, always reminded her that her music mattered. One afternoon, Jake came running into the music room with an excited look on his face. "Emily, guess what?" She smiled. "What?" "That woman from the State Music Academy's Claire, she's coming to the recital." Emily's hands froze above the piano keys. "Really?" Jake nodded. She emailed the school and asked if she could be an official guest judge. Judge, Emily repeated. "Yeah," Jake said. This year, the school added a new thing: any standout performance at the spring recital will be offered a special audition at the academy. Miss Claire's idea. Emily felt a wave of shock and pressure wash over her. The recital had just become more than a performance. It was now a chance to change her future. "She really believes in you," Jake said. "She thinks you have what it takes to get in." Emily took a deep breath. "That's a lot." "You've got this," Jake said. "I'll help you practice every day." And he did. Day after day, Emily and Jake stayed late after school, rehearsing in the choir room when no one else was around. Emily worked on a completely new piece, something powerful, emotional, and original. It didn't have a name yet, but it told a story. Her story. The pain of being judged, the loneliness of silence, the freedom of music. But as they practiced, Emily noticed something odd. Mr. Dalton had started showing up at the back of the room. He wouldn't say anything, but he stood there, arms crossed, watching. His expression was unreadable. Was he impressed? Angry? She couldn't tell. One day, when they finished practicing, Jake turned to Emily and whispered, "He's up to something." Emily didn't want to believe that, but the feeling in her heart told her to stay alert. 3 days before the recital, the school announced the final performance list. Emily's name was last on the list. Jake frowned when he saw it. "They gave you the closing slot. It's supposed to be a good thing, right?" Emily asked. "Yes," Jake said slowly. "Less someone wants." "You two mess up under pressure?" Emily understood what he meant. Closing the show meant she would be the final act. The crowd would be expecting something great. That kind of pressure could either make you shin or break you. "I'll be okay," she said, mostly to herself. But later that evening, something even more surprising happened. Miss Rosa, the assistant choir teacher, pulled Emily aside. "I'm not supposed to say this," she said in a low voice, "but I want to warn you. Mr. Dalton tried to remove your name from the recital list." Emily froze. "What he told the principal you weren't part of." "The official music program," Miss Rosa continued. "He said you had no formal training and that you weren't qualified to perform." Emily's throat tightened. "Did they listen to him?" Miss Rosa shook her head. "No, the principal said the school supports talent, not just tradition. And your viral video proves your talent to the whole world." Emily felt both relieved and angry. "Why does he hate me so much?" Ms. Rosa placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "He doesn't hate you. He's afraid. Afraid that someone like you who doesn't follow his rules might outshine everything he's built." Nodded slowly. She didn't want to hurt anyone. She just wanted to play. But now it felt like her success came with a price. Still, she was determined not to let fear win. On the day of the recital, the entire auditorium buzzed with energy. Parents, students, teachers, and even local news reporters had shown up. The buzz was partly because of the event, but mostly because everyone wanted to see her. Emily waited backstage, hands folded in her lap. She couldn't see the lights, the stage, or the crowd, but she could feel the nervous energy in the air. Every few minutes, someone came over to wish her good luck. Jake stayed by her side the whole time. "You ready?" She nodded, holding on to the feeling of the piano keys in her mind. One by one, performers went out and did their thing. Choirs sang, violinists played, dancers danced. The crowd clapped, cheered, and sometimes whistled. Finally, the lights dimmed. Again, and the principal stepped onto the stage. "For our final performance tonight," he announced, "please welcome Emily Lane." The applause began as a soft wave, then grew stronger. Emily walked slowly onto the stage, guided by Jake. Her cane tapped lightly against the wooden floor. She sat at the piano, the spotlight warming her skin. Then the room went silent. Emily took a deep breath, placed her fingers on the keys, and began to play. The first notes were soft, like a whisper in the dark. The music grew slowly, telling a story with every chord. Her fingers moved with emotion. Dancing across the keys with grace and purpose, she poured everything into the song: the pain of being judged, the joy of being heard, the courage to keep going. Her body swayed gently with the rhythm, and her face showed a deep peace, like she was at home. The crowd was completely silent. No coughing, no whispering, just listening, as the music swelled toward the climax. The notes became bold and strong, filled with emotion that couldn't be faked. Then, with a gentle slowdown, Emily brought the song to its end. One final note, held softly, like the closing of a book. There was silence, and then dash applause. Loud, powerful, real. The entire auditorium stood up and clapped. Some shouted. Others cried. A few people held their hands to their hearts. It wasn't just appreciation. It was awe. Emily smiled, her eyes closed, tears slipping down her cheeks. Jake ran up and hugged her from the side. You did it. Backstage. Miss Claire from the State Academy stood beside the principal, clapping. With pride, that girl, she said, has more heart in her music than any student I've heard this year. Later, as Emily walked off stage, Mr. Dalton stood silently in the hallway. Their paths crossed for just a moment. He didn't speak, but for the first time his expression wasn't angry. It was uncertain, like he didn't know what to say. Emily didn't stop. She walked past him with her head high, because she no longer needed his approval. Her music had spoken louder than his words ever could. That night, Emily sat at home with her mother and Jake, eating ice cream and laughing. You'll never believe it, Jake said. You're all over social media again. People are calling it the best performance of the year. Emily smiled. That's nice. But you know what matters most? What? I didn't play for them. I played for me. Jake nodded. That's why they listened. And for the first time, Emily believed that her music, her voice, was finally being heard. After the recital, the world around Emily changed in ways she had never imagined. Standing ovations still echoed in her heart. It was the kind of moment that felt like a dream, but this one was real. The video of her performance, uploaded by Jake again, was already spreading across the internet. Thousands of people were watching, commenting, and sharing her music. Some said her piano piece made them cry. Others said they felt hope, peace, and inspiration just from hearing her play. But what mattered most to Emily was not the views or likes. It was the feeling that, for once, people had truly seen her. Not just as the blind girl, but as a musician, an artist, a person with a voice, even if that voice came through her fingertips instead of her words. The next morning, the school hallways buzzed with energy. Students who had once whispered behind her back now came up to her with bright eyes and real smiles. That was beautiful, one girl said. I've never heard anything like it. Another boy handed her a note that simply read, You made me feel something. Thank you. Even teachers she had never met stopped her to offer their praise. Teacher invited her to play a small piece before their upcoming school event. The librarian asked if she'd help with a new music appreciation club. Everyone wanted to hear more. Jake walked beside her through it all, proud and excited. You're a star now, he said, half joking, but with a sparkle in his eyes. Should start selling autographs. Emily laughed softly.
Owie.
Maybe I should start charging for hugs. But despite the happiness, not everyone was celebrating. Mr. Dalton had become quieter and colder than ever. He no longer stood at the doorway of the music room or gave instructions during choir practice with energy. It was as if something inside him had been shaken. Maybe he realized he had judged Emily too quickly. Or maybe he just didn't know how. To accept that someone outside his structure had risen so high, so fast. Then, something unexpected happened. 2 days after the recital, Emily was called into the principal's office. She felt nervous as she stepped inside, her cane gently tapping the floor. Jake waited outside. The principal greeted her warmly. Emily, come in. Please, sit down. Emily sat, her hands folded in her lap. Is something wrong? Not at all, he said with a smile. In fact, this is good news. Miss Claire from the State Music Academy has written a letter. She was deeply moved by your recital performance and has officially invited you to audition for their Young Musicians program. Emily's mouth dropped open slightly. She couldn't speak at first. She believes you have extraordinary talent, the principal continued, and she thinks you'd be a strong candidate for a full scholarship. Emily felt her chest rise. With joy, I don't know what to say. You've already said it, the principal smiled. Through your music. She left the office with her heart racing. Jake met her in the hallway. What happened? I've been invited to audition for the State Academy, she whispered. Jake stared at her. You're serious? She nodded. Yes. Jake whooped with joy and spun around in the hallway. Yes, I knew it. You deserve this. That night, Emily's house was filled with laughter and celebration. Her mother made her favorite meal, and even her usually quiet older brother told her how proud he was. You're going places, Em, he said. Big places. But Emily knew that the journey wasn't over. If anything, it had just begun. Over the next 2 weeks, she worked harder than ever. She practiced daily, not just playing pieces, but pushing herself to compose new music that reflected her feelings. One of the Academy's requirements was an original composition for the audition. So Emily decided to write something deeply personal, a piece that told the full story of pain, rejection, discovery, and finally, triumph. She called it The Light I Found. Jake listened to her new piece again and again as she practiced. Every time he noticed something different, something deeper. This is your masterpiece, he told her. It's like you're telling the whole world who you are. One afternoon, as she practiced in the empty music room, something strange happened. The door opened, and quiet footsteps entered. She stopped playing. Jake, no, came a deep voice. It was Mr. Dalton. Emily's fingers stiffened. She didn't know what to say. Mr. Dalton stood near the back of the room for a moment. Then he spoke. That piece, ... it's yours. Yes, she said softly. There was a long silence. I was wrong about you, he said, his voice low but steady. I judged you before I ever heard your heart. Emily didn't respond right away. She wasn't sure if it was an apology or something else. You didn't fit into the structure I built here, he continued. You didn't follow the rules. But your music broke through walls I didn't even realize I had built. Emily finally spoke. I never wanted to break anything. I just wanted to be heard. Mr. Dalton took a deep breath. You were, loud and clear. Then he walked out. Emily sat there for a moment, unsure how to feel. It wasn't complete forgiveness, but it was something. An opening. A step. The next week, the school hosted a special assembly to recognize student achievements. Emily was called on stage to receive a certificate for artistic excellence in music. The applause was thunderous. Cameras flashed. She stood tall, proud and grateful. After the assembly, a few parents approached her. One woman, with tears in her eyes, said, My son is autistic. He doesn't speak much, but he saw your video and started tapping on the piano at home. Thank you for showing him that music doesn't need sight or words, just feeling, another father said. You reminded me why I used to love music. I hadn't touched my guitar. In 20 years, until last night, Emily was touched. Her music wasn't just about her anymore. It was touching lives. The day of the audition arrived. Emily and her mother traveled to the State Music Academy building, a grand, beautiful place with tall windows and wide marble stairs. Jake couldn't come, but he sent her a voice message. You've already won 'em. Now just go play your heart out. Emily smiled, holding his words close. Inside the academy, she was guided to a large room with a grand piano. 3 judges sat at a table, quiet and attentive. She introduced herself softly, placed her fingers on the keys, and began to play The Light I Found. As the music flowed, she forgot about the pressure, the judges, even the piano itself. It was just her and the sound, her pain, her joy, her strength. She ended the piece with a soft final note and slowly lifted her hands. The room was quiet. One judge finally spoke. Thank you, Emily. That was breathtaking. Another nodded. You've given us something music with soul. The third smiled. Welcome to the State Music Academy. Tears formed in Emily's eyes. She had done it. Outside, she called Jake. I got in. She whispered. Jake screamed so loudly she had to pull the phone away from her ear. Yes, I knew it. Back at school, Emily was welcomed like a hero. Students clapped. Teachers hugged her. Even the janitor gave her a thumbs up and said, "Keep playing, girl. You've got something special." Mr. Dalton didn't speak, but he gave her a respectful nod, and this time it felt genuine. Later, Emily stood alone in the music room. She sat at the piano again, touched the keys, and smiled. She began to play a gentle melody, one full of peace and hope, because now she knew her place. She belonged here. She always had. The day Emily received her official acceptance letter from the State Music Academy, everything felt like a dream. The envelope was heavy and beautiful, with gold lettering and a thick, smooth texture. Her mother handed it to her with shaking hands, eyes already filled with tears. Emily slowly opened it. Her fingers brushed over the raised seal, and as her mom read the letter aloud, she smiled, and her heart filled with joy. It was real. She had earned her place. Not because of luck, not because of pity, but because of her music, because of her. Word spread quickly through the school. Emily Lane, the blind girl who once sat quietly at lunch, was now going to one of the most prestigious music programs in the state. The announcement was even printed in the local newspaper with the headline, "Blind Teen's Piano Performance Wins State Academy Spot. A Rising Star Emerges." Some people at school still whispered when they saw her, but now it wasn't in a mocking way, it was out of awe and admiration. Students from all grades began stopping her in the hallways, asking questions about the academy, her music, and even for tips on how to start playing. Jake couldn't stop smiling every time he saw her. "You did it, Emily," he said, almost. "Every day, you proved them all wrong." But Emily didn't care about proving people wrong anymore. Her focus had changed. She had something more powerful now, a mission. She realized that her success wasn't just her own. It belonged to every student who had ever felt ignored, doubted, or rejected. She had become a symbol of hope, whether she liked it or not. She wanted to use her journey to help others rise, just like Jake had helped her. One morning, as she was sitting in the library, a soft voice interrupted her thoughts. "Hi, are you Emily?" She turned her head toward the sound.
Yes,
"I'm Noah," said a boy nervously. "I'm in 8th grade. I have dyslexia, and I saw your recital online." Emily smiled gently. "Nice to meet you, Noah." He sat down. "I want to learn piano, but I can't read music. People say I won't be able to keep up." Emily reached out and placed a hand on his. "You don't need to read notes to play music. You just need to feel it." From that day forward, Emily started spending her free time helping other students who had learning difficulties, physical disabilities, or just needed someone to believe in them. She gave small lessons after school, using her memory and ear training techniques. She helped them connect with the music in their own way. The school gave her permission to form a new club called The Sound Within. It welcomed anyone, no matter their background, training, or ability. All they needed was love for music. Emily wasn't trying to replace the formal music program. She just wanted to open a second door, a door that had once been closed to her. Surprisingly, Ms. Rosa, the assistant choir teacher, volunteered to help. She even spoke to the school board to get Emily extra resources, like headphones, accessible keyboards, and more. The club grew quickly. Students from different grades joined, and soon they were performing together at school events. They created songs that mixed piano with drums, vocals, poetry, even tapping and clapping rhythms. Some students who had never spoken in front of a crowd before were now singing with confidence. One day, Mr. Dalton walked into a club session. The room went quiet for a second, but he didn't interrupt. He just stood in the back, listening as the group played an original piece written by a quiet girl named Leela, who had selective mutism. When the song ended, he clapped gently and nodded. Later, as the students packed up, he approached Emily. "I've been thinking a lot," he said, "about how I run things, about who I've left out." Emily waited quietly. "You taught me something," he continued. "Music isn't just sound. It's inclusion. It's emotion. It's freedom." Emily smiled. "It took me a while to learn that too." He looked around the room. If you ever want help running this club, let me know. That moment was small, but powerful. It was a quiet form of healing, not a perfect apology, but a real one. Months passed. Emily continued to practice, perform, and teach. Her YouTube channel, with Jake's help, reached over 1 million views. People from all over the country sent her messages, some asking for advice, others simply saying thank you. One video went especially viral, a duet between her and Jake. She played piano, he played the trumpet. The two had developed a strong musical connection, and their performance of a song called Beneath the Same Sky touched hearts around the world. Soon after, Emily received another unexpected letter, this time from a foundation that supported young artists with disabilities. They wanted to feature her in a national documentary series about overcoming challenges through art. The filming took place over a few weeks. The crew followed her around school, recorded her practicing, and interviewed her family, teachers, and friends. They even filmed a special performance at the City Theater, where Emily played her new piece titled Unseen, Not Silent. The day the documentary was released, Emily sat with her family and Jake in the living room. As the film played, they watched scenes of her walking through the school halls with her cane, teaching her club students and sitting at the piano, her fingers flying gracefully over the keys. One line from the documentary narrator stood out: "Emily Lane cannot see the world, but she can feel it. And through her music, she helps the world feel itself." When the documentary ended, Emily was silent for a long time. Her mom was crying. Jake was clapping slowly with a huge grin on his face. "You changed lives, Em," he whispered. She turned her head toward him. "So did you." Later that night, Emily sat at her keyboard, alone. The house was quiet, the lights were low, and her fingers rested gently on the keys. She didn't play for an audience now. She didn't play for school, or the academy, or social media. She played for herself. A soft melody filled the room. It was simple, but full of emotion, like a conversation between her heart and the world. She closed her eyes and let herself feel every note, because this was her true gift, not just the ability to play music, but the power to make people feel, to make them pause, reflect. He'll remind them that everyone, no matter their abilities or challenges, has something beautiful inside, and that sometimes the ones we ignore are the ones who carry the light. Emily Lane's story had started with silence, but now it echoed everywhere with music, with kindness, with truth, and it would never be forgotten.